I have a video on my channel on narcissistic adult children. It is the most popular video out of all my videos. And one of the people that posted a comment said, would you please do a video on narcissistic teenage children? So that is why I am doing this. So let me first define narcissism again. Well, first of all, narcissism is a personality disorder, which means it's listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses. And narcissistic personality disorder isn't something that happens or is diagnosed in childhood. It's typically diagnosed in early adulthood. Technically, there's another disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, that is put or diagnosed when the child is below adult age. However, let's just talk about what narcissism or a narcissist's characteristics are. So first of all, a narcissist is somebody who is self-centered, narcissists think more about themselves than they do other people. Narcissists are arrogant. They think they're right. They think they have the insight on things. They tend to be very adamant that the way that they think and the way that they do things is the only way to do things. So they're not really open to other people's views. They react with rage to criticism, rage to any type of correction or suggestion that they're wrong. They're going to lash out at you. They punish you. They're very cold. They're very angry. They're non-empathetic, meaning they could care less how they hurt you, how they treat you, how they affect you, how you're feeling. So, and then also they're very entitled, meaning that they believe that they deserve things. They deserve whatever they want. They deserve it now. They don't have to work for it. You owe it to them. And the other one is they're grandiose, meaning grandiose means bigger or greater. So they have a grandiose view of themselves. In other words, they think they're pretty darn special and they don't really have to do anything to prove that. So what do you do? Well, first, let me back up. The personality disorder is somebody who has 5 or more of those things in all relationships, like friends, teachers, it would be any siblings, parents, grandparents, employer. Your teenager who you are wondering if is narcissistic or not may not have that with everyone. It might just be with you, or it could be an attitude with everyone else. So there are a lot of young people in our society now who have narcissistic tendencies or narcissistic characteristics, but are not truly narcissistic personality disordered, meaning that they don't really have the personality disorder, but they sure are narcissistic. And that comes from our culture. It comes from the way they're raised. They've been given so much materialism. There's been such an abundance. They haven't really had to sacrifice. And there hasn't really been a lot of things. They've been told they're pretty darn special by school. I've got another video where I describe 7 traits of narcissistic children. And I think if you'll listen to that in depth, I don't want to reiterate all of that. So there's a lot of reason why we're seeing a rise in narcissistic traits amongst our youth. And it's not good. And it's very difficult for parents to deal with. So let's talk about how to handle that teenager. Well, first of all, my sympathies go out to you if you have a difficult teenager, because my advice, first thing to anyone who tells me I'm struggling with my teenager, is hang on, you're in for a long ride. Because when you start having trouble with teenagers, that could be 12 or 13 years old, and this could go up into early adulthood. Sorry. Or maybe yours will be resolved sooner. However, it is part, unfortunately, of the growing up process in Western culture that kids rebel. They rebel against their values. They rebel against their parents. They become focused on peers. They will look at it positively. They do have to figure out, who am I? What do I believe? What do I want? And those are good processes, even though those can be threatening to us as parents, especially those of us who want our children to adopt what we think are good and wholesome ideas and ideals and beliefs. But that is part of the process of growing up. So you're going to see some of that anyway. But the rebelliousness comes from just the whole suggestion and idea to teach teenagers that when you separate from your parents or when you start questioning things, that you need to be rebellious about it and you need to kind of have an attitude. And there are cultures that don't have that in their teenagers. So I would say that part of this might just be the child going through the teenage years, and maybe you can kind of feel a little better about that this is the normal process and may not be something as extreme as narcissism in your child that will continue as an adult. But here are some of the things that you can do. Number one, don't take it personal. And what I mean by it is the things your child says, such as, "You're a horrible parent. I hate you. I'm never going to see you again after I move out of this house. I'm not going to have anything to do with you. I'm never going to have children because you're so awful," and on and on. Okay, so these are things that are meant to get you to give in to what the child, teenager, is demanding. They are things that are meant to wear you down. They are things that are meant to hurt. But just like anyone who is in a reactive emotion and is kind of responding angrily or out of the loss of emotional control, there are things that are going to be said that the child doesn't mean. And so don't take it personal. Detach from it. Detach meaning you're going to hear it and it's going to be like water off a duck's back. You're going to be like, okay, we'll see. We'll see. Probably not. You could say that, or you could just be quiet and say nothing, or however it is that helps you to respond and not take it personal, and just say to yourself something like, "Well, there he goes again," or "There she goes again," spouting off, making all these crazy threats that I know she's not going to keep, or probably not going to keep, or "Boy, I remember saying those things to my parents," or "I remember when this other kid of mine said those things and they didn't mean them, it didn't happen, and I'm not going to worry about it until it happens." Okay? The other thing is don't give in to manipulation. I mean, don't. When you learn about a manipulation, emotional manipulation, I have videos on my YouTube channel, as well as there's tons out there on the YouTube that talk to you about manipulation. How do you know when somebody's manipulating you? What is manipulation? The types of it. How do you respond to it? How do you stay strong? How do you, how can you recognize manipulation for what it is? Because you need to. Manipulation is anything that is designed to get you to give in to what the person is demanding. So the teenager wants to go out, wants the car, wants money, doesn't want the consequence, wants you to agree to, do whatever it is. And if you say no or begin to say no, there's going to be manipulation, which is simply pressure to get you to back down. It could be punishment. It could be a verbal put down. It could be a threat. It could be not talking to you. It could be saying, "I don't care about school now," or "I'm just going to run away, I'm going to leave," or "I'm going to go live with dad," or "I'm going to go live with mom," if you're divorced and the child has places to go. And by the way, you might not be able to prevent that, but you can't give in and do what you know is not right just because your child is threatening you. The other thing is say no and stick to it. So that kind of goes along with don't give in to manipulation, but just maybe you're gonna say, you do say no, or you're thinking about whether or not you can say no and you're not sure. Well, get strong. Get strong, say no when you need it, know that it's okay. You don't have to say yes to everything. If you feel guilty when you say no, go get some help to strengthen you. Find a friend, find a mentor, take a class, read a book, read one of my books, go to a therapist, whatever it is. Get strong enough to say no and not allow the guilt to happen to where it makes you back down. Just stick to saying no when you know that it is the right thing to do. The next one is to focus on the long-term benefits, okay? Whatever it is you're doing with your child, if you think about the right now, you might have trouble because you might be giving in to the emotion, to the fear. The best thing to do is to think long-term. How can I, when your kid is little, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to raise this kid until the kid's, 18, and I've got to do all these things that are going to be good for this kid to become an adult. Well, same thing now. Your kid's a teenager, but you're going to be saying things to this kid that are going to help him or her in the long run for adulthood. Still focus on that. Not just, is the kid happy today, or is the kid mad at you today? Is the kid upset today? Is the kid making threats today? Is the kid sulking or pouting today, or mad today, or whatever that is? Think about the long-term benefit of your kid, because that's really what you care about. The next one is, don't indulge this child. I mean, we have such an indulgent culture, and it is, I'm not blaming you for your kids' narcissistic traits. I mean, there are plenty of reasons that is happening in increasing numbers in our youth. And it has a lot to do with culture. It has a lot to do with our materialistic culture, the loss of values, the loss of faith in our culture, the loss of the intact family unit, all kinds of things where kids are just, or they're just being indulged. They're told that they're doing a good job when they're not. They're told that they're great when they haven't really accomplished something. We just have an overabundance of material things. There hasn't really been there's been no depression. There's been no World War II, any of those things. We've had so much. We've got cell phones. We get new cell phones all the time. Kids get cell phones when they're little. They get cars. They get, we have all of the social media. They have all of these, gadgets and these things that are just the perks of this thriving, materialistic, abundant society that we live in. But we need to keep in mind that our children do not need to be indulged. And this sounds like the typical thing an older person says, but I reflect back on that, and I think the difference between how I was raised, my first two daughters were raised, and then my youngest daughter was raised, and they were only like 7 or 10 years difference. 7 to 10 years difference in the two older girls and the younger one. And what happened is, of course, we got older, so we had more money and more options, and compared to when we were just first married and the first two were little and we were on a really tight budget. And that's the case with a lot of people. Also, it was the invention of cell phone and the computers and the laptops and social media and TV. That's, instead of having to get a video, you could go just, on demand, all the video games, all this stuff. I mean, they're just the difference in how we live. There is a difference, and it affects kids. And the culture that we have now is just more indulgent. So think of ways that you can help your child to have to earn things. The teenager, maybe get a job instead of giving the child a car, instead of giving the child insurance, instead of giving the child spending money, have the child get a job. Have that child have to do things to earn that car, to earn that down payment, to earn the payment for the car. All of these things are good for your child, and they do the opposite of increasing narcissistic entitlement. Okay, they remind the child, you're not so special, you got to work like the rest of us. I had to work as a parent to go get this money. You're going to work as a teenager to go get this money. Then let your child experience consequences. When the teenager does something wrong at school, home, the grades, team that the child is on, don't helicopter parent. Don't go fix it. Don't solve it for the child. Go and allow the kid to figure it out. This is called growing up. And it's also called logical consequences. If your child does A and B happens, your child needs to experience so that that child will know, don't do A next time. And if you keep doing it, you're going to have to keep doing it even more. There's a scripture in Proverbs that says, if you rescue an angry man, you will be doing it again. So if you rescue your child from the problems that your child has incurred from his or her own behavior, you're going to be rescuing that child again. No lesson will be learned. Then the next one is to not allow that child to put you in any financial or legal risk. I mean, don't go, and this is kind of a general rule, I think, for parents, we need to protect ourselves financially and legally from the choices that our kids make. Their choices are, there are some choices that you are, or legal obligation that you are in for an underage child, no matter what. But if you have choices, protect yourself. Don't go out there and buy your kid a car and co-sign for it. And when you know that your kid is irresponsible and won't make payments. I mean, that's just stupid. You're hurting yourself and you don't need to do that. So be careful with that. Then the next one is don't let your teenage narcissistic child ruin other relationships. And that happens because you're arguing with this other person about the kid's behavior. Maybe you're, jumping in and protecting that child, and it's a, step parent that is seeing things clearer, and you're defending your child and it's starting to affect your marriage. I mean, look at what it is that is at stake. Look at the truth about what your child is doing, and be careful that you don't allow that child to ruin your other adult relationships or ruin the relationship with your other children. I mean, figure out a way to set some boundaries, to put some safeguards in there so that this narcissistic teenager does not ruin family and the home for everyone else. So, and then the last one is to take care of yourself. And this is kind of like, it's one of my 10 relationship changing principles, is to nurture yourself or take care of yourself. That is always the case. And when you're in stressful situations, you have to take better care of yourself than when you are not in stressful situations. So if you've got a narcissistic teenage child, you need support. You're getting that by watching this video. You need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need a counselor. Maybe you need a support group. Maybe you need to, read some books. My website has got my books on there. They're helpful for any, difficult relationship. Maybe you need to just have a mentor or somebody that you can call, somebody that's safe to talk to, that's wise. I mean, you need to take care of yourself. So let me just briefly go over them again. What can you do to deal with a teenage narcissistic child? Okay, 1, don't take what that child does personal. You didn't cause it. It's not your fault. Just look at it as this is just that teenager going off again. Next one, don't give in to manipulation. The next one, say no and stick to it. Next one, focus on the long-term benefits. 5th one, don't indulge that child. Be careful just to not give an overabundance of material things and give in to the child's every whim. Number 6 is let the child experience the consequences of his or her own behavior. 7, don't put yourself in financial or legal risk. 8, don't let that child ruin other relationships. And 9, take care of yourself. So thank you for watching this video on narcissistic teenage children. And I would suggest that if you need more help, that you watch some of my other videos. They're all applicable to any difficult relationship, as well as the materials on my website at changemyrelationship.com. Thank you.